All right, it's 100 days of Keto Chow. Today is day 23. I looked it up before even starting the recording. So everything's still going great. Yeah, I ended up having breakfast and lunch pretty close to each other, rather late yesterday. We spent most of the morning and early afternoon driving from Salt Lake, well, southern Salt Lake, South Jordan to be exact, up to Logan, Utah, and then back. And on the way there, on the way back rather, we stopped at the place that does the packaging of our electrolyte drops. And they said that they're supposed to be getting the little empty bottles. I think actually today is when they're going to be getting those. So if that's the case, then they'll be able to put those into packaging, and we might actually really have the electrolyte drops and the fasting drops, both sizes, ready to go, maybe Friday or Monday. We'll see. We did just run out of, oh, here's Lindsay. Hi, Lindsay.
Hey.
How's it going?
Am I cheating parking? I never parked correctly.
Yeah, you're fine.
Hey.
Just go on back. Miriam's back there.
How are ya?
No saying hi to people. Oh my gosh.
Hey, this is like a family neighborhood business, right?
Yeah, you're probably right.
I am right.
Anyway, Miriam's back there, so.
I'm just dropping off the...
She's like on a conference call in the truck.
Ghostbusters picking up or dropping off.
Dropping off.
Okay.
See you
Come
guys.
on, no Ghostbusters. Seriously? Oh man, you gotta watch Ghostbusters,
I've never
Lindsay.
seen it.
You've never seen the original Ghostbusters?
Maybe when I was like 6 when it came out.
Oh my gosh, you need to
I know.
watch that.
We'll borrow it from the Peters.
That is good. Anyway, bye, Lindsay. Let's see. What was I talking about? Lindsay just came in. You've seen her on our Facebook Live before. She's our friend who is type 1 diabetic and is doing a keto diet right now. She also takes photos of our stuff. What was I talking about? I don't know. Apparently it wasn't very important. The probiotic is still working great, in case you wanted to know. I've got the Garden of Life. I bought this bottle of them from Costco years ago. It says on the side that you're supposed to refrigerate it after opening for maximum potency. I've always kept it in the fridge, and even though the best buy date is like sometime in, I think it's in 2016, they still work very well. So for any of you, once again, that are having issues, just like it says on the How to Prepare Keto Chow webpage, please take a probiotic. You'll thank me. Or you might not, because that'd be kind of weird. But anyway, let's see. There was a discussion a couple days ago about high-oleic sunflower oil and how good that is for a ketogenic diet. And I hadn't really studied much about high-oleic sunflower oil, so I learned, and here's what I learned. Well, number one, okay, so regular sunflower oil is very high in polyunstable fats. They usually call them polyunsaturated, but what they are is polyunstable, meaning a saturated fat is a chain of carbons, and every single one of them has 2 hydrogens attached to it. It is saturated with hydrogen. A monounsaturated, there's a single spot where instead of there being 2 hydrogens on the carbon, there's only one, and another one that only has 1, and so there's a double bond. There's a single double bond between 2 carbon atoms, and it usually makes the instead of this being a nice long straight chain, it's got a kink in it. That's a monounsaturated fat. Then you have polyunsaturated fats, which means that there are 3, 6, 9 or more spots where there are 2, where there's double bonds. So instead of just being 1 like a mono or none like a saturated, a polyunsaturated has a bunch of these. And every time there's a double bond, that's a place where chemical reactions can happen. Most notably, there will be the one that usually happens is oxidation. An oxygen molecule or an oxygen atom, whatever. Well, it usually travels in the molecule, but whatever. An oxygen atom gets in there and attaches. And so instead of a double bond between the carbons, you now have it's attached to a oxygen. And that's what the rancid oil is. When you open up a thing of like soybean oil or peanut oil and you're like, oh, that smells bad. What you're smelling is the oxidized oil. You'll notice that oils like avocado oil, which are very high in monounsaturated, olive oil, which is high in monounsaturated because they're fruit oils. That's the key thing. Avocados and olives are fruits. Fruit oils produce more monounsaturated fats in them. There's still a little bit of poly, and there's a fair amount of saturated fats in the olive and avocado oils, but mostly you get monounsaturated. Whereas seed oils, they usually call them vegetable oils, but they have nothing to do with vegetables. It's called a vegetable oil by the processed seed oil industry so that it sounds better, because vegetables are good for you, right? So we'll call it a vegetable oil. Well, seed oils, if we're calling them by their right name, you have to use industrial machinery to extract them. They usually have to be deodorized and bleached and put through a bunch of different reactions so that they're palatable to humans. Because as they come out of the seeds, they usually are not. It's not something that you could consume. And it wasn't until the Industrial Revolution that we were even able to extract seed oils. Fruit oils we've done for a long time. Avocado oil, not quite as long, but olive oil, I mean, come on, that's literally ancient history. The entire Mediterranean is based on olive oil, so yeah. But so as humans, we have a lot of experience with saturated fats. We have a lot of experience with monounsaturated fats. We do not have a historical experience with polyunsaturated or polyunstable seed oils that are coming out of seeds. And that's just because they didn't exist before now. If you wanted fats, it either came from an animal or it came from a fruit or that sort of thing. But so that's why I try to limit the amount of polyunstable that reacts with oxygen, causes lots of problems in my lipid system. I try to restrict those as much as possible. Now, all fats, like when you eat a steak, yeah, there's saturated fat in it. Surprisingly, there's also a high amount of monounsaturated fat as well. And the saturated fats that are in a steak, it's the sort of stuff that whenever you see somebody talking about heart-healthy fats, stearic acid, which is the stuff that you get in steaks, is listed as one of the healthy fats. But for some reason, a steak is not considered a healthy fat. Why? Because it came from an animal and that doesn't work with their agenda. I won't go there. So I try to get as much saturated fat into my diet as I possibly can, which is one of the reasons why right now I'm doing heavy cream. And I've done tests on myself. My 42 days of Keto Chow that I was doing this time last year was an experiment to find out what specific different types of fat, monounsaturated, saturated, polyunsaturated, would do to my lipid system in isolation using Keto Chow to eliminate variables. And based on the data that I got back, absolutely I want as much saturated fat as I can possibly get, or stable fat as I prefer to call it. I want the majority of the rest of it I want to have as monounstable, which doesn't oxidize as much, doesn't cause the same health problems, and with as little polyunstable fat as I can possibly get. And the majority of that in the form of omega-3 fatty acids from fish oil or from fish. So that's what I personally prefer based on the tests I've done myself and all the blood tests and everything else. Now, oddly enough, or I guess conveniently enough, Dr. Michael EADS gave a presentation at 2018's Low Carb Breckenridge, in which he talks about a bunch of different metabolic stuff. At the very beginning of the presentation, it gets pretty sciencey, and the reason for that is he's setting up the explanation of why specific fats are more healthy for you than other ones. And so he explains a lot of the processes that go down in the cell, like the actual like molecular how things are done, so that when he starts talking about, and it's like the second half or the last third or something like that, when he starts explaining why this fat is better, you can understand that based off of the earlier information he gave you. What it comes down to is there's actual science and maths. Yeah, I just went there. That can be used to determine whether or not a fatty acid is healthy for you or whether it's not, and just how good it is. Really cool stuff. It's a bit over a lot of people's heads, but if you have the time and inclination, I really highly suggest you watch it. The blog post that I'm putting this video up with has a link to that. Or if you search on Google, which is what I always do, Eades, E-A-D-E-S, Breckenridge, Breckenridge, I think. If you search for that on Google, you'll find it. It's like A New Theory of Metabolic something or other is the title. Fantastic stuff. Absolutely fantastic stuff. Breckenridge last year was just off the rails, and we're going to be going this year again to Low Carb Denver because they moved the venue. It's a couple miles to the east now. Anyhow, that was a long update. So, yeah, get your saturated fat, kids. I'm enjoying mine. All that heavy cream, it's fantastic. I checked my ketones this morning. I actually checked it twice, which is why I have I checked it once on this finger, and it didn't bleed very much, and it only said I had 0.9 on my ketones. So I poked myself again. Actually, I did a bunch of jumping jacks to get the blood working. Poked myself again, and it said 2.6. So, and that's because the first one I didn't completely fill up the measuring strip, and so it wasn't getting an accurate reading. So I also blew into my level breath ketone meter, and it said that my breath acetone was like 365 parts per million, which is really high. It was saying 200 and something yesterday, and so I thought for sure it was wrong. There was a problem with it. Anyway, so I did a recalibration and all this stuff, and it's still coming back super high, and when I tried the calibration gas, it's reading that accurately. So I guess I've got really high breath acetone right now. Guess I'm metabolizing fat. Cool. Anyway, yeah. Catch you tomorrow. I believe, this should be day 24. So, see ya.